Where's my... hello, everyone. I'm Alan, also known as McLaren 2009, and today I am playing Derail Valley. But first, I gotta find out where my remote went. Because apparently I dropped it on the ground. And I don't know where it is. That's kind of an important thing. Alright, let's go check Lost and Found. We're off to a strong start today. Oh, nope, it's not there yet. Alright, let's see. I started out by the caboose. Or, no, I started out here-ish? It's a bright yellow remote. How did I lose it? But basically, the idea of what I'm trying to do today is I'm going to be hauling a collection of military cargo. I've got some nuclear flasks, some ammunition, and some flat cars, all going to the military base up in the mountains. So, let's grab those real quick. Nuclear flasks, ammunition, both going from the harbor to the military base. So there's that, and also logistics haul. Alright. Okay, we got all those taken care of. Now we just gotta get back to the concerning issue of figuring out where my remote went. I mean, if it's gone, it's gone, but... And it's like the weirdest thing for the game to just, like... Okay. There it is. Okay, so... In case you're curious about what just happened, because I'm kind of curious too, somehow this is cassette A1, this is cassette A11. There were two A11s and no remote. So the remote was in my inventory, but not. I don't get very many opportunities to use that thing, so I figure might as well. Alright, so in order to get this party started, we need to get rid of the caboose, unfortunately. Because we're not going to bring it along on this trip. So let's go over here and get my locomotive set up. We have the normal 2, 76 and 77. Both have been refueled, resupplied, had their wheels corrected, all that good stuff. As you can see, hundreds all across the board. And we look at this. I finally got a response on what is happening and why it's happening with the coupler knuckles. Or not knuckles, but the chain and hooks. It turns out the game doesn't actually track which one is connected because it's essentially irrelevant. They both accomplish the same goal, so as long as one of them is connected, the vehicles are connected. But as to which specific one is connected, it doesn't matter. It's not tracked in any way, shape, or form. As long as one of them is connected, the vehicles are connected. So basically, it's going to arbitrarily just keep bouncing between them because, for all functional purposes, it doesn't matter. And basically, it's just a me issue that I keep noticing it. But I asked a question about it because they were talking about coupling physics specifically. And so I just had to ask in the simulator update, is it going to keep bouncing between couplers? And I got a response back saying that it does it because it's not like a tracked thing. Like, the game's not keeping an eye on what position the coupler is in. It just doesn't matter. They even said it's a very it's something that can be looked into later, but it's not exactly a priority. And I completely get that. It's truly just a problem that I have. So, yeah, that's a thing. It was just kind of funny that I finally got around to asking about that other thing. And it turns out, no, I'm not crazy. That is something that is happening. It's just, it doesn't mean anything. So now I kind of have a different outlook on it. Like when I start coupling cars and locomotives and all that fun stuff, I can tell you right now, I'm not going to stop looking for it, but it's, I can't even say it's not going to bother me as much, but at least now I have an explanation, and I'm not going crazy. It's just the game doesn't worry about that specific variable. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It's not like a bug. It's just the game doesn't worry about it. I do, apparently, but the game does not. So that's just a me issue. Don't have a tab for that yet on my channel, though. Then the last time I looked at the post on the Discord channel, somebody else was like, I'm not crazy. This is happening to someone else too. So apparently I'm not the only one that it bothers. It's just... it doesn't make a difference with the game. And I guess you can kind of see it, like, right here. At this distance, it doesn't even look like there are couplers or hoses. They have to, like, spawn in when you get close enough to see them. So that's probably, like, part of it. It essentially, at least from an outsider's perspective, it seems like it's creating the visual representation of the coupler as you see it. Kind of like an ambient occlusion sort of thing. But I'm not a programmer, not a game developer. The fact that I even know what ambient occlusion is, or even sort of grasp it as a concept, is probably some form of freaking miracle at this point. But the bottom line is, I know from making my really rough 3D models, more things that can move when you're looking at them creates like more strain on processing the game and making it like appear in front of you. So it makes sense to remove the couplers, or at least make them not visible when you can't physically see them anymore, to make it less demanding to process. At least that's my not very educated guess of what's going on and why. But put another thing on the board of finally asking the developers questions about the things that are, I don't think bothering me is the right word, but just like things that I find odd. The things that are actually bothering me are the invisible walls and the randomly changing directions when you hit the invisible wall. But I asked about that like weeks back. I know that is definitively a bug in the game, and I also know definitively that it's getting fixed. This is another prime example. We had two. We had one when we crossed the turntable, and one at this switch. So, yeah, never a dull moment. Alright, so what we gotta do, apply the independent brake, flip this switch, pop this into reverse, throttle up, kick off the independent, and just kind of let it do its own thing. Alright, flip this switch so that it's aligned with the left so that we can get those things. And then we go over here, pop that down to notch 1, because there's another one of those little invisible walls that is notorious right here on this section of track. So I know we're going to hit it again. So we need to go over here, and then we got to flip this switch. Alright, so track is aligned to go right, left, and we're going to order these from heaviest to lightest. So right now, This is definitely the heaviest. 35,000 kilograms just for the car itself, 52,000 kilograms for the nuclear fuel. Next thing on the list, 20,000 kilograms and 31,000 kilograms. Not too heavy, but not light at all. And then last but certainly not least, well, actually, it certainly is least, we have the flat cars that they're 11,000 kilograms apiece. Deadly Gamer 21. Hello. Currently, I am driving not one, but two DE6s. And I'm kind of like paired with these DE6s because I've had 76 for like ever. And then at some point, I came back here to the harbor and 77 spawned in, so they're in sequential order. So I'm just like, I'm going to keep these until the game either explodes and deletes my save somehow, or the simulator update comes out. So for now, I'm just sticking with these two because they're in sequential order. Because I'm kind of weird like that, and these are details that I focus on. So right now what I'm working on is I'm getting 3 loads all going up to the military base up in the mountains. I've got spent nuclear fuel, ammunition, and empty flat cars. I'm currently ordering them by from the heaviest things closest to the locomotive to the lightest things farthest from the locomotive. Yeah, the Steam is pretty cool. It's just I'm not very good at running it efficiently. At least these I know how to use. And because I'm determined to keep these 2 locomotives that are in order, I haven't left them anywhere because they'll despawn as soon as I leave. Supposedly there's a mod for it, but I don't know if it's any good. Yeah, it's certainly interesting to be the engineer and fireman at the same time. With having no experience with, no experience with locomotives of any kind, but specifically no experience with steam in real life, I cannot imagine those 2 jobs have like any common ground. Alright, love tap the cars. With well, yeah, they work together, but I mean they don't like you're not gonna have one person doing both jobs. That would just be like madness, I think. Oh, that's pretty cool. Alright, let's go back here, make sure all of our air is connected. Now, I do not I do not work for the railroad. I'm working on it, or I'm trying to. I'm just waiting for the final approval, and I'm actually now I'm waiting for a start date. I got my medical stuff straightened out, and I'm waiting to go work for the railroad. But I'm not there yet, so my real-world experience is limited to driving trucks. So everything that I do in this game, stems from something I heard in a YouTube video and paired with what I know about trucks. So, what I know is very limited, and what job I'll specifically be doing, I have a conditional job offer to work for a Class 1 railroad as a freight conductor. Oh. Steam locomotives on weekends and work on the track. That'd be pretty cool. Before I joined the military, I was a welder, and I specifically worked in a factory that built train cars. Oh. So my real-world experience with the railroad is mostly focusing on just the cars. Like, for instance, I can go over here to these flat cars, and while the things that I worked on in real life were all basically coal and grain gondolas, general purpose hopper cars, and a couple of random log cars, I can still go over here to this. I can crawl under here, and you see all of these brackets and things. I've literally put those on. I have welded those in place in real life. Like, specifically these that hold the guide rods for the brake system, those exact brackets I have welded on real train cars. The Flying Scotsman, that's the one that, or that's a variation of the one that set the speed record for a steam train, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I've never touched a locomotive before, but I've worked on thousands of cars, and I only worked in that factory for a year. First to go 100 miles per hour and been up to 75. That's pretty good. I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're in the, you're probably in the UK? Maybe? I've done just random odd jobs over the years. I went to college right out of high school, but it didn't work out so well the first time. Oh no, this is the pairing the nuclear fuel with those ammunition boxcars back there. It makes what you call a dirty bomb. A conventional explosive with radioactive material. Basically, it has fallout. It'll make you sick. But yeah, college didn't work out so well the first time, so I learned how to weld instead. Then I went to work in a factory for a year. Joined the Marine Corps. got out of the Marine Corps, went back to college, much more successfully this time. Took a break from school to drive trucks for a little while. Did that for a year, and now I'm applying. It's like now I'm gonna go work for the railroad. Basically, I do all kinds of weird stuff. Basically, it would not be your problem. That is a good point. Although apparently the player character in Derail Valley is kind of like some nigh immortal demigod, because you can get run over by the train and still keep kicking. What are you studying? I was a biochemistry major. So I specifically have an interest in hazmat, so anything that has a placard. And in real life, I have a endorsement to carry hazmat on trucks. But because of the extra training requirements, radioactive cargo is the one thing I am not allowed to transport, because to carry radioactive material, you need a specific radiation license that you pretty much carry on your person everywhere you go. But I have seen these Type C containers on the road in real life. And it was crazy when I seen it. Because they'll have the yellow and white, red 3 radioactive class 7 placard, a fizzle placard, and a corrosive placard. I pulled up behind that truck and I'm just like, I'm gonna hang back a little ways. I don't know what the hell this guy's carrying. But yeah, radioactive is the one thing I can't carry in real life. But the company that I worked for, we didn't really get too much hazmat. So, the only things I've gotten to haul in real life has been bleach and helium. And I'm not talking like a couple of bottles of bleach. I'm talking 42,000 pounds of it. Like, you could clean up a crime scene with this amount of bleach. And the helium, I think it was just a pallet. It was like the smallest part of the load. But the really funny thing is, they were both for Walmart, of all things. I always thought I would get hazmat from like the chemical companies that I hauled things for, but nope, both placarded loads were Walmart. And by coming in a little bit later, you missed my somewhat unhinged rant about where I finally got an explanation of why the coupling system like randomly changes what hook it's connected to, and sometimes it'll reverse. It's like the weirdest, most bizarre thing. But I finally have an explanation for it. Yeah, not a lot of people do. I had a plan that if I stayed driving trucks, I wanted to work my way up to being what's called a nuclear materials courier, working for the U.S. Department of Energy. But when I was in school getting my license to drive trucks, I asked my instructors about that, and they told me that basically the job doesn't hire very often, and when it does hire, you need 10 years experience and a completely flawless record. But I'm not currently driving trucks at the moment. I'm switching to go work for the railroad, so I guess I'm not going to be a materials courier. And since I'm going up to Pennsylvania, I'm probably going to be hauling coal until I die. Worked with horrible couplers. Yeah, it's just weird in the game. Like, it bothers me because, like, I have, like, this compulsive need where I'll always do everything the same way every time that I do it. So, starting out, I always coupled the front vehicle to the back vehicle. But then whenever it, like, derails or comes apart for whatever bizarre reason, I would use the auto couple on the remote and it would automatically couple from the back to the front. So then I was like, okay, the game is telling me it wants me to couple from the back to the front. So then I switched it. I started compulsively doing it from the trailing vehicle to the leading vehicle. But then you would walk back to it after being out of visible range for it, and you would go back and take a look at it, and it would not be in the position that you left it in. And it was like the weirdest thing. So I finally got around to asking about it on the Discord server, and I got a response. It turns out it doesn't matter in the slightest which one you connect to which one. It truly does not matter. The game does not track it. As long as something is coupled, the game knows that it is properly coupled, and all is right in the world. So basically, when you can't see it anymore, the couplers are just gone. And when they come back, they'll just be in whatever position. And apparently this is something that just bothers me because I'm weird. But such is life. Alright, I really should not have let off on the throttle because there's kind of like an invisible wall right there by that leading switch that kind of slows you down. Basically, this game's got a couple of bugs. But the good news is, being as that is something that is one of the few things that actually legitimately bothers me, the coupling thing is just weird, but now I have an explanation for it. So it's still going to bother me, but I probably won't complain about it as much. Or at least not visibly. But the things that actually bother me are like the invisible walls that kind of serve like a speed bump on the switches. Asked about that a couple weeks back, and I got an explanation on that, and it turns out it is a well-known and documented issue, and the response I got assured me that that specific thing is definitely fixed in Simulator. So I guess in addition to the planned features that they've been telling us about all the time, there are also just your normal standard bug fixes, optimization, that sort of stuff, in addition to the new stuff that's getting added and streamlined. They're also going to refine the stuff we already have. So, all good news. So yeah, I go back here, I grab the rear vehicle, couple it to the front vehicle, open up the air, and we're coupled. And then, because it carries over with how you are supposed to check trucks with multiple trailers, you go back to the rearmost vehicle, crack open the valve, listen for air to come out. If air comes out, everything's connected. In real life, we have an end of train device that saves you the trouble having to do that. It just remotely tells you what the air pressure is at the back of the train. But we don't have that in the game yet, and I don't think that's coming in Simulator. I think that'll be shortly after Simulator. We don't have air brakes usually. That's weird. They pretty much all have them here. But if you're doing like heritage stuff with Steam, oh yeah, that literally what I was just thinking. Heritage railways work with vacuum brakes. But aren't vacuum brakes still like air? It's just backwards. Instead of applying pressure, you're removing pressure. And then the vacuum applies the brakes. Oh, okay, at least I sort of understand that. Not an engineer in real life, so the stuff that I know is very, very limited. Alright, so pop it into forward. Hit the horn, because why not? And then I need to flip this switch. Because this is inbound. Yeah, it is. Alright, flip the switch right here. So we're back aligned with the inbound track. Throttle up, because it doesn't look like much, but this is heavy. And we're about to go uphill. Yeah, apparently the way that I understand it, you can move the cars without air, because once you let out all of the air, you don't have brakes anymore. You just won't be able to stop with the cars unless you tie in the air. But in real life, we have the handbrakes. But good news, handbrakes are coming. And then it's really weird when you look at the, you follow the stuff on the Discord server, and it's always in the, anything that has to do with the brakes. They always have, like, the explanations where, like, the regular people on the Discord server are all, like, experts on train brakes. So you always have to get, like, the crash course in how train brakes work. And then they always share the same video where they explicitly state, it is not at all like how trucks work. It's not like that at all. And that is absolutely true. But having experience with trucks specifically, I also know why that would be a terrible idea for trains. It's possible, but it's a bad idea. Because the way that you release the brakes on a truck, you pump air into the system, and it compresses a spring and releases the brake. Well, that's all good and fine if you have like 1, 2, or maybe even 3 vehicles. However, if you have, say, 100 vehicles, how certain are you that you're going to keep 120 psi through all 100 vehicles? Now you got a problem. Because if you lose pressure, the spring locks. And now you're going to grind your brakes, set your wheels on fire, all of that fun stuff. And you would instantly see why we don't do that with trains. Now, these are solid steel, so they're not going to easily catch on fire. That being said, metal can burn. Everything can burn, it just needs the right conditions for it to happen. But that's a thing for another science lesson. Yeah, I really like all of these things. Like, I get very excited talking about it because it's like the coolest thing ever to me. I mean, clearly I'm very easily amused, but that's neither here nor there. Bottom line is, I learn this stuff, I absorb it like a sponge, and then I just start, like, informing everyone else, whether they want to or not. And then here on Twitch, I have a semi-captive audience. Whatever wild tangent I want to go off on, I am free to do it. Of course, that being said, anybody watching is free to just jump ship and decide I'm a little bit too crazy and just bail on me. But I've been fairly lucky so far. And much to my sincere amazement, the things that people watch are like the weird, obscure simulator games that I play. So apparently this is my niche. This is the thing that I'm going to stream. Because this is what my sort of audience watches. Alright, now it's going to get really interesting because there is a slim chance I might have to back down this hill, and get a running start. Because this isn't even the steep part. This is the shallow part of this hill. Over there is where it gets steep. And if we can't get up this right now, it's going to be bad. And I'm going all the way up to the military base. Alright, but the good news is we're accelerating. Hopefully that's getting fixed. Yeah, you'll notice some of the texture glitches and like just stuff like floating when it's not supposed to be. Alright, put this away. Hopefully it doesn't get eaten by my game again. And let's keep throttling up. We gotta make it up this hill. But the thing is, this isn't even like the bad part. it's gonna get bad right about here, so around this turn right here. And then it's gonna get really bad right here. That's like 3.8% up. It's wild. So you gotta be really, really careful with this stuff. And then, because I have an improvised dirty bomb, I gotta be careful with cargo and I don't want to derail. Because if any of those get broken, well, bad things happen. Then we got nuclear fallout and all that crazy stuff, and it's just not a fun time. Not fun for the whole family. Alright, so knock back on the throttle, but just far enough that our speed starts to fall. And then once we get down to the lower end of the spectrum, speed back up until the speed starts to go back up again. And this is the way I go up and down hills in Derail Valley and in Train Sim World. Hit the horn for good luck. And slow back down. Basically, I want to keep going about 35 kilometers an hour through here, because there's a lot of 40k zones. There are a couple of areas where you can go and speed up, but there's a catch. You can really only go like the speed of the slowest speed zone your train's currently in. And my controllers are still acting up. Alright, we're staying pretty constant. Make it a quick. That's weird. Oh yeah, you can go 70, but the thing is, or at least the thing that I'm slowly starting to pick up from like Train Sim World, is the speed limit. Like this says I can go 40 right here, and this is lower, so I'm instantly in a lower speed zone. But hypothetically, if the inverse was true, and I was going that way, I would be leaving a 40k zone and going into a 70k zone, but I can't go 70 until all of my train is in the 70 zone. I can only go 40 because the rest of the train is still in 40. Speed up, now slow down. Yeah, it's a never-ending battle. Up and down, up and down, up and down, until we get around the hill. As the nice people on Discord pointed out, if we were doing this realistically, you would probably be going 35 around 99% of the map. Inversely, that means that my particular playstyle is what you might call very boring. I go out of my way to not derail, not break things, and do everything as safely as I can. Because in my head, I'm playing this in VR. So for all intents and purposes, I am standing in what looks like a diesel locomotive. And if I actually derail, well, for one, if I fly off this cliff, it's probably going to cause some motion sickness. Even with 700 hours in VR, that is still a thing that can happen if you're not careful. Oh yeah. Most people do that way. I just try to do it safely. basically, I started playing Derail Valley and Train Sim World religiously since I decided I wanted to go work for the railroad IRL. So even though this is probably the farthest from the type of equipment I'm actually going to see when I get to the real railroad, I prefer this one because of the immersion of playing in VR. Whereas if I want to see the real equipment, I'll play Train Sim World and just be disappointed by the things that are otherwise lacking. Oh yeah, high-speed trains are really cool. But the thing is, in that game, the high-speed trains are pretty much just for the passenger routes, and I don't particularly like doing the passenger routes in Train Sim World. Not because there's anything wrong with them, it's just I don't like the stress of having like split-second margins of the timetable. Like, okay, you gotta go. It's like you have to go 15 miles and you have exactly 20 minutes to get there. If it takes you longer than 20 minutes, you're going to start losing time for every other stop on this route. And it's just like, I don't want to deal with that. Let me just do the freight jobs. I'll just take these coal cars down the side of a mountain and I'll be golden. I just don't like the stress of dealing with the freight or the passenger missions. The freight missions are easy. I already know I got like 10,000 tons of cargo behind me. I'm going to go up this hill going like 30. Speed limit's 50, but I can only go 30 because I got the damn thing in notch 8 and this is all it's given me. It's just so much easier to deal with. But I also get regularly disappointed by the game in general, to the point that I've made peace with the fact that I am never going to be sponsored by Dovetail Games. If I make it as a streamer and actually get like an audience and start making money from this, instead of a sponsorship, I'm pretty sure they're going to send a hitman after me, for as much as I complain about that game. Even though I keep playing it, I still complain. It's very confusing. And we're getting to the point where we're going to start going downhill. And then there are like 120 kilometer an hour zones in here, but I'm not going 120 through here. I might go 65 if I'm feeling spicy. So, as I said, the way I play is boring. Most people, they see a game called Derail Valley, they want to derail stuff and blow things up. Well, when you have all of the licenses in the game, the insurance copay is coming out of you. So I try to minimize the chaos and destruction that I cause. I'll wait until we get the sandbox mode before I start breaking things. But, once again, what I do is boring. Do not be like me unless you're using this as a very off-brand training simulator. Because I want to play the video games before I get to the actual school. Yeah, basically, I just kind of just run the trains. Yeah. Like, specifically when the simulator update comes out, I think I'm probably going to keep my legacy save alive just to get the new licenses so that I have them unlocked for the sandbox mode. And then I'm going to start over completely from square one on the realistic difficulty. Because I pretty much exclusively play it in VR. So all of like the third-person camera, the UI, the remote controls, all of that stuff, that doesn't necessarily appeal to me. And they also said in the video when they were talking about driving from third person, kind of like what you can do in Train Sim World, someone specifically asked about the people that play in VR, and I immediately thought that like the third-person camera you have like in Train Sim World would be absolutely vomit-inducing instantly in VR. I would hate it with every fiber of my being. But they did kind of soothe those issues over by saying that they aren't ready to show it yet, but they have an idea for something third person for VR. And it kind of sounds like they were going towards like what's that game? I was literally just looking at it. But yeah, it was nice talking to you as well. Consider following if you feel like it. Basically, I play this at least 3 days a week. I really like Derail Valley. Rolling Line, that's the game I was thinking of. Basically, you're a giant playing with a toy train set. That would not be vomit-inducing. But having like a third-person camera attached to the locomotive directly, and wherever you turn, you like swing violently around the object. Oh god, that almost makes me queasy just thinking about it. I do not want that. But yeah, more than likely when the update comes out, I'll be playing it in still almost exclusively in VR and probably on the realistic difficulty. You do everything by hand, but the good news is by doing everything safe and semi-intelligently, they're getting more lenient with the time bonuses, so I should be able to get time bonuses again in the immediate future. In theory. Because right now, I've pretty much accepted that I'm never getting a time bonus again unless I rush. Because I have like a negative 35% on my completion time. It's just bad. Kind of cool to be able to look at my chat window and see that my timer is working. I just need to have people that are actively viewing and chatting. And then it comes on. So it's awesome to see that those systems work. I hadn't gotten a chance to really use them yet. So it's just really cool to see that it's actually doing something. Alright, now, I do know that since I just came down from the goods factory on on Monday when I played this last, so I'm going to have to flip this switch right here to go left because we're going to go up here, and we got to go to the military base and back up You gotta go past the entrance and back into the base. And I need this one. B6S. Of course it is. Alright, we're coming up on a terminal. We're coming up on a station, so I want to hit the brake a little bit. Oh, and see, it only goes down to 60 right here, so what difference does it make? And then, even though it says you can go like 50 through the yard, I am not going 50 through the yard. Intentionally. I'll try to go slower than that. I've generally been trying to make a habit of aligning the switches for every like industry that you pass through. I try to make it so that it stays aligned with the main or like not labeled track, so I can just drive through everything. And whenever I leave an industry, I realign the switches so that we can just go straight through it. But there's always like that kind of like tick in the back of your mind where you're just like, what if I forgot the switch and then I accidentally fly into a parked empty car? Realistically, that can happen, but it doesn't happen often. Now, one time at the goods factory specifically, I was doing my usual thing where I go around the back with the loaded cars going out of town, and then I come in past the passenger terminal, and then I go onto the loading track. Well, I accidentally flipped the wrong switch. And normally what I try to do is I make that first right so that I go out in front of the D lot, I think it is. Or is it C? It might be C. But the back lot at the goods factory, I try to go past it and then back in. Well, I was coming back around with an outbound load, so I needed to flip the switch to be aligned with the left to come from the passenger terminal. No big deal. Well, the problem is I accidentally grabbed the wrong switch, and I flipped the switch going into the storage track next to the loading track. And that was a bad idea. You know, I think it is D. But not important. Bottom line is, flip the wrong switch, the locomotive automatically flipped the spring-loaded switch for the track that I was on, but I manually flipped the switch to go on a collision course into the back of some boxcars on a storage track. So, needless to say, I had to do an emergency stop, back up off of that track, go past the switch, line the switch up with the way that I want to go, which was down the loading track, and go on with the plan of the day. But it wasted like what felt like 10-15 minutes. It was probably only like 2, but it felt like longer. Bottom line. Alright, so we gotta speed up a little bit. Yeah, I could see that being a thing. Although I don't know if I would want them to randomize, because I kind of like the compulsive thing where I try to make it so that I can pass through unless I need to stop. Granted, I'm still going to slow down anyway, but I don't know, it's just how I play, I guess. Otherwise... And I also don't think, even with the foreknowledge of what switches I've flipped in what places, I don't think I can snooze through any of the route. Like, I already know I have to flip this switch right here, because I just came down from the goods factory back on Monday. So I gotta go left here, because I could have jumped on the back of the car and then just flipped the switch as I went by, but I didn't do that for whatever reason, so I know I gotta realign that one. And then there are some times where my compulsive needs fail me. Like over here in City Southwest, if you bring out a loaded train going to the harbor, you're going to go out that way. You make the right out of the outbound track, and then if you don't go back and flip the switch, you'll be aligned to go nose first into City Southwest. Ideally, I'd want other trains traveling around, having to watch their locations and work around what they're all doing, but that might be a bit much. Yeah, I think they said that they want to have, like, AI trains at some point, but I think that's, like, years off. That's kind of right up there with what the guy was saying earlier about wishing the game had multiplayer, specifically for the steamer, so you can have an engineer and a fireman. But while I can understand that, and it's kind of cool, I can also see why that probably would not be a priority, or even on the scope of what they're trying to do. But yeah, AI trains would be kind of cool. Even if you don't actually have trains, the thing that I think would be plausible is when people are making the joking comments about the simulator update with the day-night cycle and the weather and the battery on your flashlight and all that fun stuff, and they're jokingly calling it the horror update for Derail Valley. If you can just play the sound of a whistle or horn going off somewhere in the distance, probably at 3 in the morning, just so it feels like there's something else in the valley and it's not just you running trains in a nuclear wasteland, that would be kind of cool. Just kind of make it feel more alive. Maybe traffic sounds. Even if it's just sounds off in the distance, it would be kind of cool to just think there's something out there. Oh yeah. I could definitely see that. Not just a no, but a hell no on multiplayer. Although for me specifically, multiplayer in VR is just a weird thing in and of itself. I have a couple of games that are definitely multiplayer in VR. It's just they're weird for some reason. If I want to play for a long period of time, I'll play a game that I can play sitting down. So that's Derail Valley, Thief Simulator after the update, VTOL VR. But the games that have like built in it's supposed to be there multiplayer, they're not as good to play sitting down. Like if I hypothetically played VR chat in a seated position, my character is just going to be crouching the entire time, and it's just going to look weird. Alright, good to go. Although, in games that you don't exactly have a body, like hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades, I play that sitting down all the time. I changed it up when I started streaming, and the couple of times that I streamed that game, I did that standing up. But that's not exactly a normal thing that I do, if that makes sense. Let me get it quick. Going too fast. It's gonna start getting a little bit weird when I get up to the interchange, and the speed limit's gonna start to go down. As it's like since I've started streaming Derail Valley, I've started learning more of the map. I've started going to more places. And as I go more places, I start to learn more things, and I'm starting to pick up more of like the speed limit zones and all that fun stuff. So I'm kind of approaching it with the same mindset that you have to approach real life. And what I mean by that is just being a licensed engineer or licensed conductor is not enough. You have to be qualified to run a specific route, and you pretty much have to know that route inside out, and backwards. Like where the speed zones are, what the terrain's like, where the sidings are, where you're exactly going, and you pretty much have to know like everything about it. I'm trying to get to that level with more areas in this game. Like, I know this route pretty well, but I don't know this route very well. But I'm trying to rectify that. So what I'll try to do is I used to pretty much just go from the harbor and town to City Southwest and the Machine Factory and then back. But then I wanted to mix it up a little bit, so I started going to the steel mill a couple of times. Then I found out you can do steel mill, goods factory, military base, and then you can just run up there and then back. Well, then I got the Military 3 license. Derail Valley is going fairly well, actually. I've got some exclusively military cargo going from the harbor to the mountain military base. And yeah, that's just what I've been doing. I finally got a response back when I asked a question on well, it was the most recent video. It might not be anymore, but the video on coupler physics on the Discord server, I asked about why the couplers just like randomly change positions, and I'll quickly go back and take a look. Like, right now it's coupled from the front to the back, but the next time I look at it, it could randomly be coupled from the back to the front. Well, I finally asked about it on the Discord server, and I got a response back. And what they told me is basically the couplers are not tracked in any way by the game. Like, what orientation it's in doesn't matter in the slightest. As long as it is properly connected in some way, the game will register it as being coupled. And then what way it looks can completely change at random because it doesn't mean anything. Oh, I am going to derail. And I'm carrying what amounts to a dirty bomb. But yeah, basically, he said they could potentially look into it in the future so that the game remembers what thing is connected, but it's not a priority. So basically, it's just like a me issue. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I'll probably have more of an opinion on it when I actually start working for the railroad, because as of right now, my only knowledge of real equipment comes from getting frustrated with Train Sim World and looking up the actual owner's manual for the ES44AC, because I couldn't figure out why the train refused to move in one of the routes. And then I come to find out that there's like a bug in the game where you have to go back and double check all of the switches when you first spawn into the scenario, because there's a slim chance they may not be in the right position. And the tutorial explicitly tells you, oh, you don't have to worry about the other locomotives, they're already configured as trailing. All you gotta do is just go to the back one so you can get the gauge readout for the end of train device. Which you don't need to go back to it. There's a gauge on the smart display that tells you what the end of train brake pressure is. But another thing entirely. AC 4400 CW. Yes, I think I know which one that is. In total, let's find out. Alright, that's 66 tons. This is 200 tons, so 270, 522. About 800 tons. But the reason that I run two DE6s is so I don't have to throttle up as far. Although I'm going uphill, so I gotta throttle up to all hell anyway, but it is what it is. Basically, one of the DE6s can pull something like 1,400 tons, but there's a catch. That's 1,400 tons on flat ground. This journey is not flat ground. So, as I get closer to the military base, it gets more and more fitting of why I brought 2 DE6s. Like, there was one time I got not 1, not 2, but 3 separate orders, all of nuclear fuel coming out of the harbor, going up here to the military base. And all 3 of them, I could not even get up this hill coming out of the harbor. I had to back up, grab a 3rd DE6 that was just chilling there, slap that onto the front, and only then could I get up the hill with 3 sets of nuclear flasks. I couldn't even bring any other stuff because the nuclear fuel was too heavy by itself. And as you can see, I've almost used half the diesel just in this locomotive. So I am pushing the ever-living hell out of these 2 locomotives. But even though it's only about 800 tons, we're getting our money's worth out of these locomotives. Unfortunately, that means it's going to cost a small fortune when I get to the military base because because they don't have a service or fuel track up there. So I'm going to have to do the servicing remotely from the station office. So not looking forward to that, but it's kind of like whatever. So I'm estimating right now that with the fee for automatically servicing it in the station, it's going to be about 30 grand a piece for the locomotives. So not looking forward to that, but the good news is, you look right here, I got just under $2 million. I'm not worried about it. And I play Derail Valley the most boring way possible. So as long as I don't do anything overly stupid, or the game doesn't randomly decide to try and destroy my train, which does happen from time to time, as long as those things don't happen, I generally don't break too much. So I try to play it sort of realistic. And I'm really looking forward to the extra realism when the simulator update comes out. Now, let me get a drink real quick. But yeah, I've actually been very surprised by this stream today. I've been having like bad luck with my Derail Valley streams, and they haven't really been doing a whole lot when I'm live on Twitch. Like, not as many people have been watching this specific game lately. However, when I transfer the video over to YouTube, I don't want to say popping off because I have 80 subscribers. Popping off just isn't happening. But bottom line is, the Derail Valley videos are getting the views there. So even if nobody's watching here, people are watching there. So it's still kind of weird. But, like I said, I've been kind of surprised by this stream today because, as you can see, for the first time since I started streaming, I actually have to scroll through my chat log. Like, I was absolutely certain my little Streamlabs timer thing that promotes my YouTube channel, I was absolutely certain it didn't work. But it turns out you just need somebody to actually be actively watching and chatting in order for the bot to activate the timer. So it's been like eye-opening. Like people are watching today, so it's like really cool. This one's going good. But yeah. So I figured I would play Derail Valley since I had it on my stream schedule. And I figured, let's run some military cargo today. And it's been about an hour and a half. For about an hour and a half. Alright, so more than likely I'll get all 3 of these loads parked, pay off my fees, which are going to be astronomical, but good news, we're hauling nuclear fuel, so just those first 6 cars, 6 cars, it'll pay to refuel both these locomotives, and I won't even sweat it. Alright, but we gotta speed up a little bit, because this is the specific area that it's gonna start getting rough. This is where the bad stuff happens. Somewhere on this section of track is an outrageously steep hill. And as we already know, this particular load almost warrants 3 locomotives, even though it's only 800 tons. And then the other thing is, you got to be careful with your speed around here, because there are a couple of areas where it goes down to 30, which makes it even sharper than down here where it only goes down to 40. And then you pair that with the fact that we're pretty much going uphill almost completely until we're past the military base. So if you go too fast, if you completely dump the throttle and just put it back into idle, you're potentially going to come to a complete stop quickly. So you pair dumping the throttle with applying any amount of brakes, and you're going to stop almost immediately. And that's gonna be bad, because if we stop, we have to start. And starting with heavy things on hills equals bad things. And this specific load, bad things will be really bad things. Those up front are spent nuclear fuel. Those boxcars back there are carrying ammunition. What happens if we blow up the ammunition cars and breach the shielding on the radiation cars? Do you know what a dirty bomb is? We would have one. This specific train and cargo is the exact reason why I had to have a background check to get my hazmat endorsement. Why I have what amounts to a security clearance to drive trucks. This is why. Okay, that's just messed up. It's gonna sound bad, but at least that wasn't nuclear. has its own fallout, but it's not nuclear, so that's good, I guess. Alright, so we go around this horseshoe at a snail's pace. I do have to say that I really like this game, and yeah, sort of. Although I think when I've heard most people refer to a dirty bomb, it has to have something either radiological, biological. I guess chemical might also fit the bill, so you might be right. Bottom line is, dirty bomb means conventional explosive that has something that's going to have side effects outside of the explosion and fire. It would have been really cool to actually do the proper training that the CBRN guys go through in the military. Although, according to some of my former coworkers, apparently I accidentally took the precursor course because I watched a video that legitimately traumatized me. And then I got back to my work center and asked them if they seen that video, and they looked at me like, no, what the hell kind of video were you watching? To add a little bit of context to that, when I first got to the fleet at my squadron in the Marine Corps, when I finally got out of training, it was time to re-qualify on the gas chamber. Basically, in avionics, you're in training for almost 2 years anyway. So by the time you get done with all of your training pipeline, it's almost time to restart on the gas chamber. So I go to the gas chamber, get there at 3 in the morning because this was before they actually put in like a schedule. That's a weird thing for another time. But bottom line is, they didn't have a schedule per se. So you just kind of show up early and you get in on a first come, first serve basis. So they told us, just get there early. Go there at like 3 in the morning. It'll be cool. Well, bad news, I had a hazmat spill to clean up the night before, and somehow I was on call for being the hazmat guy, but that's another story I can tell a different time. Bottom line is, go to the gas chamber at 3 in the morning after I went to bed at 1 in the morning because I got woken up because somebody spilled oil, but completely unrelated. I get to the gas chamber, do the class, and I gotta sit through this video. It had to have been from like the 60s or 70s. It was like barely in color. And it was a video of guys in in lab coats and hazmat suits injecting what the narrator explained is a live nerve agent into a white rabbit in a laboratory. And the video keeps rolling until the rabbit is convulsing, blood starts coming out of its eyes. It's a really messed up video. And I remember this in like vivid detail because it's kind of like stuck with me. And I go back to my work center after I qualified, went back to my room, showered, got all the CS gas off me, changed camis, all that fun stuff. Go back to my work center, and I'm like, so did y'all have to watch a video where they injected a rabbit with a nerve agent and then watched it die? And they're like, no, what the hell kind of video were you watching? Like, yeah, that was the video that we had to sit through. Now, the reason you have to sit through that is because you have to know what a nerve agent can do. But generally speaking, they just tell you that it'll kill you, and the reason, and that specific reason, is why you have 9 seconds to don and clear your mask. Because if you take longer than 9 seconds, that's how long it will take for a very potent nerve agent to get from the ground to your head. And then once it's inside of your body, you have minutes to administer an antidote, or you're just going to die, and there's nothing we can do. Well, to solidify that lesson, they showed a video of what the nerve agent does. Well, apparently they don't show that to everybody, and I just drew the short straw that day. And I've been out of the Marine Corps for 4 years now, so 6 years later, it still affected me. Although the thing that really stuck with me was the fact that apparently no one else had seen that video and they thought I was just crazy. Then I started seeing some really colorful stuff when I got to all of my hazmat training, but that's a whole other thing entirely. Basically, when you take HAZWOPER, you get to learn about all kinds of industrial accidents and bad, scary stuff that happens with chemicals and some biological stuff, but mostly when a biological or radiological threat happens, the military will respond, not necessarily civilian responders. And then apparently, because I guess I've talked about this stuff in the past, I got a recommendation on YouTube for a guy that made a tier list video on nerve agents. And I'm not going to lie, I watched the video, but I was just like, what in my watch history made this get recommended to me? I watched, anime girl VTubers. How did that lead to chemical weapons? On second thought, I probably don't want the answer to that question. Let's be honest. It's like I play video games where I drive trains and then watch streamers with VTubers. Anime VTubers are well known for their proclivity for war crimes. I think that's mostly confined to just HoloLive. There's a certain rabbit that has apparently a reputation for war crimes. I forget what video game I was playing where somebody was talking about war crimes specifically. Oh, actually, I know what game it was. It was hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades, and I think it was me talking about war crimes. the Hague conventions don't affect hot dogs. Alright. Well, we gotta jump off. And wouldn't you know it, the storage track where I need to park these logistics cars has stuff on it. Alright, kick off the train brake, and let's just let this thing coast in here and call it a day. Well, I mean, we gotta get all this stuff parked, but we look at the freight hauls, B4. Alright, so all I gotta do is just pull forward, back up onto this track, split them apart, turn these in, and then I'm good. Go pay my environmental fees, and all is right in the world, even if it isn't. But we gotta slow down, because we're about to love tap these flat cars at... Those are not flat cars. Those are flasks. We're gonna love tap these flasks at 5 kilometers an hour. Real quick. I do have to thank the people that stuck around. You've made this stream infinitely more exciting. That way I'm not just sitting here talking to myself and ranting about random things that I'd imagine somebody other than me cares about. But I digress. Alright. These are probably going back to the harbor. Which means... I can almost guarantee all 3 of these are going to the harbor. Matter of fact, let's go double check that. Let's see, what do we got? Harbor, harbor, harbor. Sweet. Yeah. Yeah, everything's going to the harbor. So basically, I've got my stream for Friday already set up. I'm going to have to dig out those and connect it to those. Actually, let me double check that. This is 35,000 and this is 19,000 in total. So these are going up front. Alright, but the problem I gotta deal with right now is that these switches have some problems. And I'm getting slowed down. I think I can make contact at 6 kilometers an hour, but 7 is too fast. So you gotta keep it at 6. Alright, now we gotta go over here. And And I gotta push just hard enough to get this last car past this sign. Let's just couple it up. Who cares? We're gonna have to pull that out of here anyway to shove these anywhere. Alright, just a little farther. Alright. Good to go. And we can leave those connected because I'm going to have to pull those out using the flat cars. So we're just going to make do. Throttle up because we're going uphill. Kick off the independent. Lather, rinse, repeat, and we're golden. Alright, so go over here to be on this side, and then I flip this switch specifically when the last boxcar passes this point. Then we get everything shoved nicely onto the B4 inbound track, and we're good. Alright. I do kinda wish that the sign would be closer to the end of the switch, because it's kind of annoying to have to remember that there's like an extra 4 or 5 feet past the sign. Although I guess realistically I don't know exactly where it would be in real life. Although it would make sense from like a physics standpoint, because you'd have more leverage farther away from the fulcrum, so it would make sense to have it connected to the rail or to the switch right here, or right here in between these two ties. Maybe I'm just going crazy. That is a very real possibility. Alright, throttle up, kick off the independent, and gently roll into the inbound track. Haven't hit the horn for a little while, so it was past due. Alright, so let's go over to let's go here. Alright, I need freight logistics. $11,000. That won't even pay to fill up one of the locomotives. Alright. Let's slow it down a little bit, because this is still a very heavy thing going downhill. And heavy things going fast equals bad things. And we can go over here, and these do not have a job. I don't think I've ever seen a loading shunting job here at the military base. It could be because you don't want to block the outbound tracks. Or it could be that you're just not allowed to load the classified cars. Which would be kind of like a weird detail to put in the game, but I won't put it past them. Alright, and as we can see here, the coupler has switched. It was coupled from the back to the front. Now it is not. Well, now it's not coupled at all, but add it to the list. But as I learned today, where it's coupled doesn't matter. All that matters is that it is coupled. Anything beyond that, you're on your own. Alright, so throttle up, get past the station office. Don't need to go that fast, but let's not get carried away. Anyway, onward and upward. I'm currently betting on what is it? It's like I'm betting on like at least 30 grand to fill up the locomotives. Put that into neutral, fully set the independent. Disconnect the locomotive, put this away. So it's probably going to be 60 grand. Just getting these filled up. Alright, there's one done. Now, this is not the proper way to turn off the locomotive, but at least I'm killing the engine first. Not just shutting off everything with the knife switch. You're definitely not supposed to do that. But we don't have a dedicated stop button. We just have the emergency stop button. All right. This one's going to be the good paying one. $153,000. That's a good budget. I was supposed to do it in 37 minutes. I did it in 109. F's in the chat. All right. Let's see what this one is. $33,000. Not bad. Supposed to be 37 minutes, took 110. Shoot me. Anyway, alright, now for the moment of truth. It's almost like I've done this before. 31,000 each. Oh! Now that's something different. Now what I'm specifically referring to What? Huh? Huh. You know what? It's probably best not to question it. But the thing that I was trying to say before I got blindsided by my insurance doing what it's supposed to do. When you go to pay the fees at the terminal, it normally gives you like the prompt of it gives you the prompt that says it would be cheaper to manually service the vehicles. So you'd save money by doing that, and then it asks you, are you sure you want to pay it here at the terminal? But this time, instead of asking that, it was just like, nah, insurance has got you covered. Like, what? I have like okay. Alright. Paid 60 grand, but we're now over $2 million, so we made a pretty good profit. In fact, just between the two freight jobs, I made double what it cost to bring these monstrosities up here. Alright, now let's go run over here and double check this. Currently, the front is still connected to the back. Alright, at least it hasn't changed. Although, as I've said repeatedly, that now I have a new dead horse to beat to a pulp. That it doesn't matter. As long as something is connected and the air hoses are properly tied in, beyond that, it does not matter. Walk away, exit the game, none of it matters. As long as something is coupled properly, the game will act as if it is coupled. Now, that being said, I have not recently had to deal with the issue where the locomotives become detached from each other at random, but supposedly that bug is still floating around. And if I had to guess, that one's probably also getting fixed. Because I think I seen a... I think I seen somebody comment on the coupling physics video where somebody was saying that could you make it a thing in the future where the couplers like just break apart if you put too much force on them? And then they were like, that might be an idea for the distant future, but it's outside of what they're doing for the simulator update. And then somebody else asked about, but doesn't that kind of like happen to some people? So I'm getting the impression that that's a bug that they know about. And it's another one of those things that it's not just me experiencing it. But it's generally the MU DE6s, they'll split apart. And then there have been like 2 or 3 times where I was pulling the caboose behind the locomotives because it was heavier than the empty cars I had behind it. And when the locomotives split, the caboose also split. And it was weird. And then that specific time was really weird because I used the remote to try and back up to get recoupled with the second locomotive, the caboose, and all the cars. and it didn't want to. Like, I pulled back, or I put it into reverse and throttled up, and it was kind of like trying to force together two same polarity magnets, and they were just trying to repel each other. So I had to force it in, or had to pull forward, back up, force it even harder, go up to like notch 6 or 7, slam them together, automatically couple, damage the locomotive, damage the caboose. But then I finally got everything fixed, or I got everything together, and I was able to go down the tracks, but it was just like the weirdest thing. But yeah, now I'm just ranting about random things. So, as a bit of a recap of what I've accomplished in this stream, brought exclusively military cargo from the harbor military base to the mountain military base, specifically a load of nuclear flasks, boxcars with ammunition, and empty flat cars in a logistics hall. Got all the way up here, even after having like this weird like bug thing where the menu made my remote disappear and it turned it into a cassette, and then it made it like I had two A11s, and then only by getting these out of my inventory and holding them in my hands did it make my remote reappear. But that's the first time I've ever seen that happen. But I was walking around trying to find out where I dropped my remote because it wasn't in the menu. And then got all of this up here. Had some issues going uphill, but that's just a me problem. I incorrectly used the brakes and it caused me to stop, and then I basically made my life harder. But got up here, and the plan for the next time that I stream Derail Valley, we're going to take our 2 cuts of biohazard cars and those empty nuclear flasks, and we're going to run those back to the harbor. But instead of going back the way we came, we're going to pull out and go back this way, where we come in the back door of the E-Track. Easy day. But, yeah. They popped apart on that curve around the back at one of the mines. Yeah, the area that it does it for me is this turn right here in between Oil Well Central and City Southwest. There's an area where there's like the track is kind of like sunken down and there's grass growing up around it. And then when you see the grass instead of the ballast, that area is where you need to be going like no more than 23 kilometers an hour. If you're going faster than that, it's probably going to break. It's weird. But in any regard, this seems like as good of a stopping place as any. This has been Derail Valley. Thank you all for watching, and have a nice day.